Thank you. We're going to open up to questions from the floor. If you'd like to ask a question, please put your hand up high and wait for the microphone to come round to you. Could we start with the gentleman in the third row over there?
First of all, thank you so much. That was incredibly eye-opening.
Thank you.
I was also wondering, so a lot of these civilizations probably had their own historical records as well, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the sources that we were seeing were from Greece and some other ones. Were those systematically destroyed, or what is the situation with historical records from, say, Egypt, but also Ghana, Mali?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's 750,000 documents surviving from the Malian Empire. So those still survive today. They haven't all been translated. So the only government in Africa, unfortunately, that's put up any money to start translating them is the government of South Africa. So of course, it's a very slow process. There's 750,000 documents. But already what has emerged from that process is a book called the Tariq al-Fatash, which is a history of that area written by an African that lived in Timbuktu. So up to this point, most of the documents have been Arab observers or North African observers of West Africa or European observers, because there was a mythology that West Africa didn't have any writing. In the case of Nubia or Sudan, for example, they have a writing system called Meroitic, but it's never been deciphered, unlike the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Whereas in Ethiopia, they have their own records, those have been deciphered. They also used the Ethiopian alphabet to write Greek. We found in Sudan, in medieval Nubia, essentially writings that are in several different languages, in Greek, in Latin. So we know it was a cosmopolitan city that had relationships with the world. So there are documents, but in many cases books have been destroyed. We know the Library of Alexandria was destroyed. We know Mesoamerican documents, that doesn't relate to Africa, but we know they were massively, almost completely destroyed. So we've had to piece back the history together in a way that accounts for the fact that there's not as much written record. Despite Europe's massive amounts of wars, there's what Van Sertima calls archival continuity. We have the written documents so we can piece the history together more easily. Whereas in the case of Africa or Mesoamerica, other colonized spaces, we may have to use other forms, things like botany, things like archaeology, but the picture is still emerging. But that isn't for absence of written documents. So I want to make that clear. But ancient Egypt, of course, has some of the most copious amounts of written documents of any ancient civilization.